Alright, so right here we have the MTC 3000 from LGX. I'm going to begin off with a general overview of the machine. Here you have your intake. Your intake then leads up to your water coalescer. This takes out all the large water particulates, like large particulates and water from the fuel. Then you go over here and you have your main motor, which is an electric motor. So here you have the magnetic conditioner. What this does, it breaks up clusters in the fuel that polarize over time by using strong magnets. This helps the fuel burn easier. Alright, then we come down here. This is the third phase in the machine. This right here is the standard fuel filter. There's different types of filters depending on how degraded and dirty your fuel is. It can go all the way down to 1 micron, and it also takes out emulsified water with the different water block filters. And here is our outtake. Hi, this is the pre-filter for the MTC 3000. This is where we use our bag filters and get out the majority of the muck, sludge, and sediment that accumulates in the bottom of the tank. As you can see, the pre-filter consists of this container, which we put our bag filters inside of this. Right here is our intake. The fuel goes into the top of here, goes through the bag filter and out of the outtake here, and then goes into the MTC 3000. Hi, now I'm going to set up the MTC 3000 and the pre-filter. First thing you're going to want to do is connect the pre-filter to your MTC 3000. You're going to do this by using your small hose. Connect it to your outtake on the pre-filter, that's shown here. Take the other end of the hose and connect it to the intake on your MTC. As we're shown right here. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to get your clear intake hose. This hose always goes to the bottom of the tank. You grab this here and you connect it to the intake of the pre-filter. Next on the agenda is the outtake hose. The outtake hose for phase 1 will be different than your last phase. The first cycle of the fuel, you're only going to be using phase 1 and 2 of the MTC 3000. So therefore your outtake is going to be from the first outtake, which is located right here. Once you have all of your hoses connected, you're now going to put the hoses into the tank. Your outtake hose will going to be placed at one end of the tank. Bring this over here. Your intake would be at the other end of the tank. Here's a 500-gallon tank. We're not going to actually be cleaning this tank in this demonstration video. We're just explaining the parts of the machine and how to use them. This is your intake hose. You're going to put this into the first port. As you can see, this tank is kind of small and our machine is built for bigger tanks, so we're not actually going to be doing anything here. But what you would do is you would stick this hose in here. It doesn't actually go in because it doesn't fit, but you would stick this hose all the way to the bottom of the tank, and it will be resting where all the sediment and sludge is. Some tricks we have to make sure you do a good job is you can attach a PVC pipe or anything rigid to the intake hose and keep it straight. This helps you move it around and gives you a little bit more flexibility when maneuvering inside the tank to get all the sludge. Here we have our outtake. This is going to go slightly into the tank just to pour the fuel onto the top of it. The MTCs use a dialysis system, taking the bad fuel from the bottom of the tank and returning clean fuel to the top. So you're going to want to just place this hose about 6 inches deep into the tank so it just pours the clean, good fuel on top. Here you have your second outtake. This this add-on here just clips on easily to the end of your hose. Now you can use this in smaller ports. If room is a problem and the hose isn't fitting, this is a perfect tool to make sure you can get into any tank. All right, once you have your hoses connected, the next step is making sure you have a clean bag filter, which I have in this hand right here, into the pre-filter. You're going to put this in, it clips right in, just push the top. Alright, you're going to then lower your bag filter into the pre-filter. Close it up. One thing to make sure you do is close all 3 screws evenly to make sure there's equal pressure on each side. Make sure also that this pressure valve is also closed once you close the machine. Close the pre-filter. Alright, then I come over here, make sure all my valves are open that need to be open. This for stage 1, I'm gonna have this valve and this valve open while keeping this one closed. This will let me use phase 1 and phase 2 of the MTC 3000 for the first pass. If you have all the right valves open on the MTC, you're gonna wanna come here and open the pre-filter valves as well. This is your last stage in the setup. After this, you're going to go over and turn on your MTC. Here we're not actually doing tank cleaning, we're just explaining the process and how the machine works. The on and off switch is located right here. Now I'm going to go over some helpful tips for the MTC 3000. On your first pass, you're going to be mainly using this top gauge that I have right here. This gauge measures pressure between the water coalescer as well as the pre-filter. Once the gauge goes deep into the red, around 25, you need to turn off your machine and change your filters. So I would proceed to turn off my machine. Now I head over to my pre-filter. First thing I want to do is close both the intake and the outtake to make sure there's no fuel passing between it. Open the release valve on top of the pre-filter to let out any pressure. And then I would then unscrew the top of the pre-filter. I would take out my old bag filter and replace it with fresh filter. I would then close the top of the pre-filter. Making sure I put equal pressure on each of the 3 screws. Closing the pressure valve on top, and then opening again both the intake and the outtake for the pre-filter. One more thing that is very useful to do is closing the intake on the MTC 3000 and occasionally opening this valve here and letting some of the water and sediment that is accumulated in the water coalescer, as well as occasionally hitting this pressure valve on top of the coalescer, which lets air and built up pressure release and lets the machine run better. Once I've done both these steps and relieved the pressure and the contaminants from the MTC, I would close this valve, double check, close this valve, open this one again, and make sure that everything is open and ready to go. Once I've double checked all that, I will proceed to turn my machine on again and run and keep getting sediment and sludge from the tank. After I finish taking the majority of the sediment out, I'm gonna turn my machine off once again, change out a bag filter, put on a lower micron fresh bag filter in, and then I'm gonna change my outtake on my MTC. I'm gonna close this valve and change the hose from this outtake, onto this outtake. This will let me use the fine filter, water block, and different types of spin-on filters I will want to get the fuel down to the desired level. Alright, one last thing that I'm going to explain is the digital flow meter. This digital flow meter will always be located on the outtake. This lets you monitor how many gallons you've processed that day, as well as how fast the flow rate is coming out of this hose. For this machine, you're going to be getting around 24 gallons per minute, and that's when it's running at its most efficient rate. You'll be able to know once the filters start getting clogged also by watching this flow meter. Once it gets down to about 19, 20, that means that it's really having to work hard, and it's time to change one of the different filters to make sure everything's running smoothly again. That covers most of the basic tips on how to use the MTC 3000.